Alright, what up, Ethan? Here's the other video. This one's on factoring quadratics. So you have a really good handle on factoring already, but I wanted to show you the situation where the number in front of your squared term is bigger than 1. So specifically this example. But let's go ahead and warm up with these smaller examples. So of course you know the candy wrapper method. So basically you start over, then under, then over, and same thing repeated. You start over here. Alright, so we know we need two things to multiply to get m squared, so that's just going to be m times m. So then we fast forward over here, and we need two numbers that multiply to a positive 8, but get us a negative 9, right? So if the two numbers multiplied are positive, but when you add them, they're negative, that means that both of the numbers have to be negative, right? So we need a positive 8. So let's think about two numbers that can multiply to give us a positive 8. We get negative 2 times negative 4, and we have negative 1 times negative 8. Those are only ways, two negative numbers that can multiply to get us a positive 8. Alright, so if we can probably check here. So remember, we need the numbers to add up to negative 9. Negative 2 and negative 4, when you add those together, you get a negative 6, so that's not good. But negative 1 and negative 8, when you add those together, you get a negative 9, so that's the one, right? So we're going to get negative 1, negative 8. Alright, now this is the part that kind of got you in trouble on the test. So remember, you have to set both of these equal to 0. Alright, so we have a m minus 1 equals 0, and then an m minus 8 equals 0, and then you solve for both. Alright, so we're going to add 1 to both sides here, and we get m equals a positive 1. And over here, we're going to add 8 to both sides, and we're going to get m is equal to a positive 8. Okay, so that's what was getting us in trouble. All right, but I already know you got this process. You got this process down very good. So we'll just have that there, but go ahead and pause this and look at it however you need to. But now let's move on to actually, I'll leave you to do number 4. All right, so now I want to show you the example that I was talking about with where there's a number that's in front of x squared that's not a 1. All right, but yeah, you can do this as practice. All right, and then I'll assign you some work you can practice with as well. But go ahead and try that for practice. So now let's talk about number 5. So I'm going to rewrite number 5 down here so it's a little clean. So we have 7x squared, and we're subtracting a 31x, and we're subtracting a 20. All right, so we can still use the candy wrapper method for this. All right, if you're comfortable with that. So now you want to start off here with your x squared. So you want two things that multiply to x squared. That's going to be easy. That's going to be x and x. Now, the other thing you need to think about is we need two numbers that multiply to whatever that number is. So that number in this case is 7, so we need two numbers to multiply to 7. Luckily for us, there's only one way to get a 7, and that's 7 and 1. Right, so we get a 7 and we get a 1. Good. All right, so far so good, right? So now what we want to do is we want to go over here, and we need to think about this. We need two numbers that multiply to a negative 20. That's all I want you to think about right now. Don't worry about this until later. We'll get into that soon. But just think about two numbers that multiply to a negative 20, and when they add, you get a negative. All right, so we need two numbers that multiply to a negative 20. Let's think about all the ways to get negative 20. Okay, so of course we have 5 and 4, and here's the thing, one of them has to be negative, and let me show you why. Because when you multiply the two numbers, you get a negative. That gives you a hint right there that one of them is going to be negative, basically. So two things multiplied together giving you a negative means one of them has to be negative. So we can have negative 5 and negative 4. We can also have negative 2 and 10, and we can have negative 1 and 20. All right, so we're gonna kind of experiment, and this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna show you what has to happen here. All right, so we're gonna take turn by turn, and we're gonna try these numbers, and we're gonna try something out here. So let's try a negative 5 on top, and then a 4 on the bottom. All right, so here's what's gonna happen. So this gets a little tedious, but I think you'll be able to follow along. So essentially what we're doing is we're going to take turns cross multiplying. So I'm going to multiply. Let me use a different color here. I'm essentially going to multiply this 7x times this 4. And what do I get when I do that? I get a 7x times 4. I get a 28x. All right. So now I'm going to multiply 1x times negative 5, and I get a negative 5x. Now you want to combine those. 28x minus 5x is a 23x. The whole point of that is whatever we add, it has to be equal to 31 for it to be the answer. So in this case, we got a 23 instead of a negative 31, so we know that that's not the right combination. All right. So here's another thing we can do. We can try switching the negative 5 and the 4, like switching places with them. So I'm going to put the 4 on top and a negative 5 on the bottom. Alright, so now let's try that. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cross multiply. So when we cross multiply here, we get 7x minus 5x. Sorry, 7x times 5x. 7x times negative 5, which is going to be a negative 35x. And then over here, we get a 1 times of 4, 1x times 4, which is a positive 4x. Now, this is very lucky. I didn't plan for it to be this way, but when we add those together, negative 35 plus 4, we get our negative 31. So that means if this matches this, we found our answer. Okay, so I didn't mean for that to happen. That was just by luck. But essentially, this is what our answer is going to be. So it's going to be a 7x plus 4, and then a 1x minus 5. And remember, you have to set both of those equal to 0. So here's our answer. So we have 7x plus 4 equals 0, and then we have 1x minus 5 equals 0. So remember, you have to solve for both. We're going to add 4 to both sides. The 4's cancel, and we're going to get 7x is equal to 4. You got to divide both sides by 7. We're going to get x is equal to 4 sevenths. That's one of our answers. And then over here, all we have to do is add 5 to both sides, and we get x is equal to 5. Those are our answers. So here's the thing. If it didn't work on this first one, like I said, that was just by luck. But if it didn't work on that first one, you would then have to keep going throughout the list. And you're going to try negative 2 and negative 10. And then remember to switch places after you try one combination. And then you keep going. And eventually you'll see it. Okay, so good. So hopefully that helped. I think that's a really good example. Now here's the thing, when you're solving quadratics, you have multiple methods. So I know you're very happy with the candy wrapper method, but for any quadratic, so basically anytime you have something like this or like this, you can solve with the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is basically like the infinity glove. Like, it'll solve anything. It'll do anything. So you can always use the quadratic formula to solve those if you're in a jam. All right. So just wanted to share that with you. I hope that's going to be helpful. And again, I'm going to give you some examples for you to try so you can get some practice in. But again, to go back to the studying thing, here are my key tips for you for studying. All right. First of all, you need to get to a place that's quiet. So like your room or the dining room table, anywhere that's going to be quiet for you. Next thing is you want to be comfortable, right? So you want to be comfortable in your room or wherever. And when I mean comfortable, I mean like, to sit up and, study for a while. And then you want something to kind of keep you honed in. So, athletes listen to music before the big game. I would listen to some kind of music, something that will keep you engaged enough and keep you focused enough. Like I said, lo-fi works for me. But when I was doing math in college, literally I was listening to 2 Chainz and I was doing calculus and stuff, but it just worked out. But anyway, the main point is you want to be in a quiet environment. You want to be comfortable. You want some kind of music. And it doesn't have to be 2 Chainz, it can be whatever. And you just want to study for a little bit at a time. And what that's going to do is going to make studying very comfortable. So that way when you take the test, you'll kind of be like, oh yeah, this is just like when I study in my room, I'm comfortable. So there's no need to be anxious. And that's when the test anxiety and all that stuff goes away. So that'll go away as you try these couple of things. But yeah, hopefully this study guide was helpful. And yeah, let me know if you need any other help. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how the test goes. But all right, man, good luck. Have a good one.